So with the Japan tour around the corner, I thought I would go back to the position group series and look at the centres this time and just have a look who the runners and riders are. And there's quite a few options, but no one's really made that jersey their own yet. So let's have a look at them and see what we think.
So I'll start with the players who've sort of had the jerseys, and that is Ben Thomas and Max Llewellen. Thomas sort of had a funny Six Nations. He obviously started playing outside half when Gatlin was in charge, and we saw how that went. It was difficult for him, and the team were playing bad, and he sort of copped a lot of flack for that. Once Sherritt came in, and then he moved him to centre, he looked a lot better, was able to fix players and create space for others, bring Max Llewellen into the game a lot more. Scored some tries, which was useful, which we haven't really been able to do in recent years, but ultimately in like a losing effort, and he sort of seems to be the one that gets a lot of criticism from fans. A lot of people saying he's not international quality. I tend to disagree. I think he's got all the skill sets. Yes, he's not the biggest, but he's got a solid kicking game. He's stronger carrying than he looks, and he can read defences and bring other players into space, like I said. A lot of people are clamouring for Eddie James, which I kind of understand, but I would be tempted to stick with Thomas for the next two games out in Japan. They've got a bit of a partnership formed now, and I would just stick to what you know and then see how they go. If they don't really give a spark in this Japan tour, then maybe time to look at someone else. But, give them a chance. And when we're talking about the partnership, we're obviously talking about Max Llewellen too. Llewellyn is such like a big guy, 6'5", 17 stone, and still only 26, so you'd like to see him really sort of step up a little bit now. He can play on the wing as well. All his caps bar one have come with Ben Thomas, so like I said, it goes back to the partnership there and the time they played at Cardiff. He's had a decent season for Gloucester too, 7 tries this season, although he's been kind of in and out of the team. Not a natural 13, I guess you could argue, but with the lack of options in that position, I think he's probably the best one to go for. When he does get into games, we've seen him get over the gain line consistently and with no issues. I mean, when you're that size, you should be getting over the gain line. But, he was criticised by Gatland for not getting enough touches, and I think that was unfair from Gatland, sort of scapegoating him in a certain way. But I do agree that sometimes he can go missing in games, and he can be a bit sort of anonymous, and you don't really notice him. But granted, he's always really played in Welsh teams that haven't been playing well, so it's tough to be really noticeable. But I'd like to see him have a dominant physical performance against a couple of teams and show that he is built for the international stage, and he's sort of here to stay and means business. As I said, though, there is, competition for positions, and Eddie James is one that seems to get a lot of attention, and I totally understand it. Again, another big boy, 6'4", 17.5 stone around that, so he's got all of the physical attributes. Had 4 caps now, but never really had a bit of a run, not really had any starts, so that's where people maybe want to start seeing him come in and get more of a run in the position, and I wouldn't be totally opposed to it. I am a big fan of his. He's got all of the attributes. He's got a good footballing ability. He can create space for others. He can also get over the gain line. Still young, so, there's plenty of time for him to develop, but I've still yet to really, really see him be dominant in a game, or just dominate an opposition 12 or 10 or something. And I want to see that from him because he's got the size and he's got the ability to do things like that. But I've yet to see it. You see flashes of a bit of brilliance and a bit of excellence from him, but then you also see some naive plays. And of course, he's young, like I said, so you're going to get those. But I really want to see him take a game by the scruff. For the Scarlets or for Wales, I want to see him just be an absolute beast on there and have a game where he's a little bit unplayable. And then I think if he can do that maybe a couple of times, then he can definitely make that jersey his own. His partner then at the Scarlets is, of course, Joe Roberts. Still young as well, 24. He's had 4 caps. He's been sort of in and around the team when Matt Sherratt has been there, coming off the bench mainly on the wing, and then started against England. I think the start on the wing was a little bit of a bridge too far for his ability, as he's not a winger, he's a 13, and he's probably one of, if not the only, real out-and-out 13 option that we have. He's a good player, he's very skillful, he's not the biggest, but he gets over the gain line. He offers just that little bit something different, a little bit more creative, a bit of a different skill set to the other options we have. Been partnering Eddie James before, so I think if one of them comes in, I'd like to see the other. So, if you're going to stick with Ben, then I'd like to see Max stay with him. But if you are going to give Eddie James a run at 12, I'd like to see him go with Roberts as well. They've had some experience playing together, so I'd like to see that. And if, for example, if the coach goes with Costello at 10 in the summer tour, then I would think you might as well go with the other two and have the sort of Scarlets 3/4. Roberts has got a lot of experience and Roberts has got a lot of potential and some promise, and he's had a bit of a bad luck with injuries, so a run of games would be good to see him. He's had a decent season for the Scarlets without setting the world alight, so more to come from him, and just getting over, maybe just a season getting over the injury, and he just needs a little bit more time. And just a quick side note while you're here, just in case you didn't know, I've been doing some work with Dragon Sports, and I'll be producing 2 weekly rugby videos for them over on their YouTube channel, so I'll put the link below, and if you want to see more of the Welsh Sports channel on Dragon Sports talking about Welsh Rugby, pop over and have a look. Then another one who always gets mentioned in my comments when talking about issues in the centre is Kieran Williams. Now I understand the people liking Kieran Williams, and it's generally Ospreys fans, which I can understand. He always has a good game or a decent game for the Ospreys. Always solid, 7 out of 10, sometimes an 8. Does a job. He's got a very good specific skill set of doing a specific job. He'll get you over that gain line. He's got that low centre of gravity. He beats tacklers, and he will always get you moving forward. For me, he's not an international player, and I don't mean that disrespectfully, but I think for internationals, you need to have a bit of something different. Now, he can pass, but he's not a natural passer, and he's not a natural creator of space for other players. He quite often will just take the ball and stick it up the jumper, and I think sometimes you think, oh, maybe he should have looked outside then, but his gear is forward, and that's what he gives you. And if you want to pick a player at 12 just to do that, then, he's a great option for that. But as I said, not my choice for Wales. I think he's fantastic for the Ospreys, and I think he'll continue to be fantastic for the Ospreys. But I just don't think he's that top international quality. And unfortunately, he's 27 now, and you've not seen him build an awful lot onto his game. His skills have got better, but just his overall ability to play 12 hasn't really changed that much. He's still the same player he was a few years ago. So I would just leave him at the Ospreys and just enjoy the fact that you'll get to have him week in, week out, turn up for the region. Another player that gets a lot of flash, another player who gets a lot of attention is young Max Paige. I can understand why. He's had an excellent breakthrough season. He's come into the Scarlets, started probably more games than he was expected and what most people were expecting due to injuries and stuff, but he's been really good. He's an excellent athlete. He's not the biggest, but he's very strong, very explosive, and a lot of pace. He can play both centre and wing. Personally, I prefer him on the wing. He does have some defensive issues defending in the centre, which, is understandable. Still young, 20, so, he's still got a lot of learning to do and a lot of experience to gain, and it's a very, very difficult position to run the show and call defensive structures and stuff like that. So you can understand him not being ready to take that step up yet. I would be more happy seeing him get more game time on the wing and learning from that. But, he's got that raw ability and he's exciting, and it's understandable why people want to get him into the team. Scores a lot of tries, 5 tries in 9 appearances for the under-20s, including a hat-trick in the World Cup against Australia. So, he's got a bit of prowess. To me, he's international in the making. He will be an international, whether it's this time or not. He'll be in the squad for me, but I don't know if he's going to necessarily get some game time. If he does, I'd like to see him employed on the wing, because I think that's where his current skill set is best suited. He's got that express pace and got that explosiveness to beat players. So, I think he'll be in the squad, but not maybe starting, or maybe not involved in the matchday squad. And then, outside of that then, this kind of like options, but no one really jumps out the page. I like an Iron Owen at the Dragons. I think if he wasn't playing at the Dragons, he would probably get a lot more attention than he does. But obviously, given the fact that the team is just constantly struggling, it is difficult to play that role that he plays. He's got some leadership qualities at only 24. He's captained a few times the Dragons this season. Worked a lot on his carrying game and his defensive game, because he's not the biggest. He's kind of an outside half playing 12, so he's got that footballing ability. But I think, he really does suffer from playing at the Dragons with his prospects for Wales. If he keeps improving, I think Wales will have to take a look at him soon, or maybe he would look at a move to another region that is maybe a bit better, doing a bit better, and maybe he could get attention that way. But at the moment, just not the time for him, unfortunately, although I really like his attitude and his skill set. Then you got the likes of Tompkins, who could come in. To me, there's no real upside to this. Yes, he's got experience, but I don't see him as someone who could nurture a young 10 coming through. But, if you want to bring him in as a plug and play, he will come in and do a job for you, no problem. Watkin, as far as I know, is going to be injured for the tour, the same as Mason Grady, which is a shame. Johnny Williams is another one. He's someone who's he's always struggled to stay fit, and for those reasons he's never really got much of a chance with Wales, which is a shame because, big boy, very strong, athletic, and he can play a little bit, but I just don't think, given his fitness and when he's had chances for Wales, hasn't necessarily taken them, although, he's not really had much of a chance, but I just don't think he's really going to get much of a look in, given some of the younger options that are available. And then you've got, Joe Hawkins coming next season, so I don't think he'll be eligible, but that'll be great to have him back in the mix with his very similar player to Ben Thomas, and probably a little bit bigger, depending on how the Scarlets are going to use him, whether they use him in the centre or outside half. And then there's no one really else. I mean, you could look at Louis Hennessy over at Bath, still very young at 21, and, he's played this season, but not really much in the Premiership. 2 games, I believe, in the Premiership. He did come to Cardiff on a loan and played 1 game for them on the wing due to injury, but then he went back to Bath and we never saw him again. So he's not getting enough top-level competition to really catch the eye and say, I think we should bring him in and give him a go. Unfortunately, I mean, they might look at him, 21. He comes with a lot of sort of pedigree in his under-20s. In his under-20s performances, but I think I just really want him to come back to a region, and he'll come back, and he's almost certainly going to get a lot of game time if he does come back, and then he can be maybe looked at more for Wales. But while he's in Bath and he's not really playing, unless he has a good run into the end of the season with a few games that are left, I don't see them really having a look at him. But that's just my thoughts. Let me know what you think, and I will catch you on the next one.